Today, I asked an actual billionaire how he would scale my business, and the answer was incredible. So it's the guy, Ken McElroy, that I'm working with today. We were sitting in his office, and I said, if you were in my position, how would you scale my business? And he said, first off, I would scale faster, deeper, and harder. And he said that verbatim, but he was kind of joking. He was smiling as he said it, but he meant it. He said, one thing I really regret when I was younger is I did not scale fast enough. He said, you really have two options. He said, one, you can, let's say you are making $100,000 a month of revenue in the business. And then let's say you are also paying yourself some sort of salary. He said, what he was doing is he was being very, very cautious, and he would only hire somebody as long as it didn't impact anything that they were doing. And it was just excess income that was coming in. And he said if he looked back on it, what he would have done is he would have hired people for more money, better talent that would have taken the trajectory of the business and taken it a whole lot further, a lot faster. And he said that really happened later on in his career. Is he realized, and this is the second thing that he said, is you have to take the ego out of it. He said you can always hire someone that is better at some sort of task than you. And there was an example that I always used where I said, let's say you can do 10 widgets of utility. Maybe you can hire someone for 7. And I said this to Ken, and he said, well, maybe you hire 2 or 3 people, but then you don't have 7 units of utility. You actually have 14 or 21 units. So you actually have a lot more productivity. And he said, yeah, Josh, that's correct. But you can also hire someone instead of finding that cheap labor and hiring a bunch of them. He said, you could actually hire someone for that role. And instead of you that can produce 10 widgets, you can hire someone that can produce 15. And he said, that's what he tries to do. And that was a huge shift in my thinking, because I'm thinking, let me hire cheap employees and train them up because I don't have the capital. Whereas he's saying what he regrets not doing and what he really learned later on is you have to get the A talent. And the A talent, the people that you have to pay more for, but have the excess return because they produce so much more value to the company than you could even imagine. He said that was really when they started to automate the business. And he said, now it's just a machine. Where he actually used this example is yesterday, he was on the phone with his acquisition guy. And he said, oh yeah, last week we put in some sort of deal for $90 million. And Ken said, wait, what? I didn't know about that. And then he called his partner, Ross, and he said, did you know about that? And Ross was like, no, I didn't know about that. He said, well, let me see the numbers for the deal. And so that is an example. They've taken themselves out of the business. And so now he's more of the visionary, where they decide what the overall direction of the business is going to go. And you know why that's so important? Is because he's built a machine that runs on its own, and it's going to continue to grow without him being there, because he said that he hired the A talent that can produce the 15 widgets of utility, whereas he could only produce 1. And he said that's when he really started to make a lot of money, when he let go of his ego and let go of the control and hired people who were better at what they were doing than him. And then they were really off to the races. So he said that's what he wished he did sooner. He hired really, really good talent to help propel them to the next level. And that same talent kind of acts as a machinery. And so I said, Ken, why didn't you stop at, let's say, $1 billion, cash out, and never have to work again? And he said, Josh, I've built a machine where I don't have to do anything. And he said it's powered by something invisible underneath the machine that can't be tracked, called momentum. And he said, right now it's like a snowball of momentum that is picking up and picking up because everyone is hyped up, because I've given people the incentive to want to work harder for their career. They're getting such good income. If they do well, they're going to make a whole lot more money. Therefore, every single person in his staff has the incentive to want to work harder and harder. And he said, why the hell would you give that up? He said, me and my partner Ross, we had these big milestones. They're real estate syndicators. And he said, first it was 1,000 units, then it was 2,500 units, then it was 5,000, then it was 10,000, and now it's 25,000. And he said, the machine just gets bigger and bigger. And he said, now we are trying to hire another machine. He said, we're trying to hire someone to build another machine for us. So now we have multiple machines running and running and running. And he said, when you have that sort of momentum where everybody in the company has the same incentives and goals aligned, he said, it is a really powerful thing. He said the compound from going to, let's say, year 20 to 21 is literally $1 billion, sometimes can be $1 billion, because the machine gets bigger and bigger and more efficient. You go from a horse carrying a carriage as the main motor to like a absolute jet engine. And that happens through time and through people. And he said, that is not something that you want to give up. He said, that is something you want forever. He said, You need to find a way to take yourself out of the business, or else you are just having a high paying job. He said that's what he had for a really long time until he really, really learned that the biggest thing is take the ego out of it. He said, nobody is that smart and don't act like you are. He said that's why C students have the best potential to run a huge business, because they understand that they can hire people smarter than them. Whereas A students, people who go to college and really succeed academically, they think they're the smartest because they always were throughout their classes. And that's why people with high IQs, very, very high IQs, are usually not exceptionally business. That's why people with super high IQs usually don't run the best businesses, because they usually think of the best way to do something, and it's very hard for them to give up control. That's why you see a lot of super high IQ people working really high up in different jobs, because they can do the task really good. But what really takes the shift, as he said, through his 20s and through his early 30s, is they were just busyness. They maybe were making a lot of money, but they were not building something that was going to compound over time. And he said that the only way to do that was with people. So take the ego out of it. And that makes so much sense. For me, for a very granular level on my core, this is something that I've thought about for a lot of time. And he says it's so much more simple than you think. It might not be easy, but it's very, very simple. And so he said, Josh, if I had any recommendation for you, it would be hire really, really good people, even if it's at the expense of your paycheck. He said, live like shit, hire really good people, and even if you have to pay extra for them, that is going to take your business to the next level. And so if you don't take the advice of, let's say, this actual billionaire, then I didn't learn anything. But it's tough. It's tough when you aren't making a ton of money to take that sort of leap of faith, especially when you don't know what roles. I mean, I have people doing specific roles, but I don't know. It definitely makes me want to think about how, because I know that there's a lot of demand for what I'm doing. So I don't know. It definitely has the hamster wheel in my head spinning. And for other news, I just ordered a chair and a desk because it's weird eating. Just completely besides the point. That has no correlation with what the video is. And I'm really I don't have a desk or something that put this on. So I'm kind of forced to make some sort of makeshift at home little ordeal. I think this is very, very simple stuff that a lot of people understand from a deep level. Just do it, right? I don't think there's too many secrets to the success of most of these hyper wealthy and successful people. It's not too much of a secret. Everyone, and myself included, I try and listen to the next Audible book or the next podcast that is potentially, or the next webinar that's going to have the secret. That is the secret that is going to reveal everything that we didn't already know before. But I think we already know, or I think that I already know what needs to be done. It's more so the execution of it. And so I spend all this time, and I think a lot of people are in this trap of finding a way to get the work done without really doing it, without having to start and pretending to be productive by watching all these podcasts and listening to all these Audible books. I was in this very, very vicious cycle of doing that, of thinking that as false productivity. Whereas if you just actually do the work that needs to be done, then you're going to get so much further along. So you got to learn the skills, but then it's just apply. And that's what I'm really learning from Ken. He has built a well-oiled machine that maybe all he's doing is filling up the gas tank and really giving it an oil change when it needs one. But it's really just letting that engine run on its own. And then it's, how do you build that engine that's going to continuously grow over time? Just food for thought. Definitely what I'll be thinking about in my dreams tonight, if it's not going to be crashing that new car. I've actually been having a ton of dreams about crashing that thing. I think I'm getting the hang of it. It's a super fun car. If you haven't checked it out, if the title was, I was just gifted Robert Kiyosaki's car. And yes, that is not clickbait. I actually was. And it's fucking ridiculous. I'm always shitting my pants in the morning when I'm starting the car and it doesn't fully start because it almost dies every single night. And then I'm just like, no, I can't make a phone call and say that the car is broken. Or I go outside and make sure it's not stolen because it's way too nice of a car. But anyway, I've got to get going. Good night. Goodbye.